District Board of Education meeting for November 4th, 2013. Can I have a motion to go into executive session for matters pertaining to the employment history of particular individuals and contractual negotiations?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to go back into public session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for November 4th, 2013. I'm going to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance given by the Brookside students, and then remain standing for a moment of silence for our armed forces, those in our community who have lost loved ones, and especially the stepfather of Gina Petruzzulo, George Bolerman.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Knapp. It looks like we have some very excited Brookside students.
We surely do. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for bringing your children. And Mrs. Ammerling, I've not heard such an enthusiastic rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance in a very, very long time. So I think from now on, whenever I'm going to have the pledge said somewhere, we're just going to have to deliver your students to remind us how important it is to be patriotic. And I look forward to hearing your good news tonight. So welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Napolitano, Dr. O'Connor, Ms. Carbone, Ms. Corrado, members of the Board of Education and Central Administrative Team. We are so excited to be invited here this evening to present good news from Brookside Elementary School. We have had a fabulous start to our school year. Our teachers and students are hard at work learning and implementing the Common Core standards and many new units of study that support that learning. Our focus on literacy is not just in the regular classrooms, but in all of our special area classes as well. Tonight, we would like to share with you some of the ways that the students are provided with opportunities with early literacy development through physical education, music, and art. This evening, Mr. Vogt, Mr. Papo, Mr. Yanuzzi, and Ms. Berger have invited many of their students from grades 1 through 3 to highlight some of this learning. And we would like to begin our presentation with our physical education teachers, Mr. Vogt and Mr. Papo. Boys and girls.
Good evening. We have our second graders up here who are extremely excited. The activity that you will be seeing was one in which we were involved with a couple weeks ago during Red Ribbon Week, which was stressing healthy choices and a healthy lifestyle. Big goal of what we're always doing is the fitness aspect. And over here, what you'll see, besides the fitness, is us supporting the Common Core. There will be reading, writing, spelling, and there's teamwork, which you'll see soon when boys and girls will be picking up letters and then working together to spell as many words as possible. So right now, here's our second graders who will be introducing themselves.
My name is Madison Tobin, and I'm in Mrs. Luongo's class. My name is Devin Carney, and I'm in Mr. Richardson's class. My name is Grace Florshak, and I'm in Mrs. Day's class.
My name is Kevin Griffiths, and I'm in Mrs. Brancati's class.
My name is Carly McGurr, and I'm in Mrs. Brancati's class.
My name is Justin Price, and I'm in Mrs. Luongo's class.
My name is Reese Bruno, and I'm in Mrs. Day's class.
My name is Jason Douglas, and I'm in Mrs. Foley's class.
Good evening. Tonight, our students will be demonstrating a fitness Scrabble game. This is a game where the students, one at a time, will come up to the red line and do an exercise. From that point, they'll come on out and they'll choose a card which has a letter on it. They go back, they place the card in the hula hoop, and at the end, they'll be able to make some words with those cards. Okay? You guys ready? Okay, you're gonna come to the red line. Go ahead, do your exercise. Go ahead. And the exercise that they're doing is called a jack in a box. So they touch the floor, clap, and then jump. Excellent. Good job. Keep up. All right, time. Okay, boys and girls, you may spread out your words and develop as many, or your letters, as many words as you can make.
Okay, boys and girls, you may now come on up with your groups.
That's it?
Now we have each student share one of the words that they were able to spell with their letters, and they will then spell each of the words. So who's coming first? Jason? Okay, Reese?
Case. C-A-S-E. Grace. G-R-A-C-E.
Good word.
Maddie, M-A-D-I. Cafe, C-A-F-E.
Great word.
Gracie, G-R-A-C-I-E. Grapes, G-R-A-P-E-S.
Luckiest, L-U-C-K-Y-E-S-T.
Whoops.
Ducks, D-U-C-K-S.
You want to get another one? Okay, we have one more.
Boat, B-O-A-T.
Okay, thank you, boys and girls. We would like to thank all the parents bringing the children out tonight. We know how hectic sometimes the nights get after school. Now, this was our first time with the activity. Another time through, we would be looking for words that would be longer, more letters. We would not take any words, or they would look for words minimum of 3 or 4 letters. And during the week, we did have some words that were 6 and 7 letters. Then another time through, the students, or Mr. Papa or I, would look for a theme for all the words: winter, different seasons, fall. And sometimes the boys and girls would even tell us the words that they were close to spelling, but were missing a letter, which happened to a group over here before. So thank you to everyone, and now it's time for Mr. Yanuzzi and the first graders.
Oh, Dennis.
Dennis is going to go black anytime soon.
Watch the extension cord right there. His hand on the extension cord over there. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. My name is Mr. Yanuzzi. I'm the art teacher over at Brookside. And this year, we read a book together called The Starry Night about Vincent van Gogh. It's about a little boy who befriends a man painting in the park, in Central Park in Manhattan. And the two of them go around to famous places and learn how to paint in the style of Van Gogh, which is using thick paint to create texture. They also learn the 6 elements of art and vocabulary such as texture, value, color, shape, space, line, and how to use these words not only to speak about artwork and critique it, but also to apply them, how they apply to new works of art, such as their own artwork. I'm going to start off by letting the children introduce themselves.
My name is Ryan Duffy from Mrs. Ames. My name is Alexis Warren from Mrs. Santos-Sousa's.
I'm Marina Tamanios from Mrs. Graff's class. I'm Moritz from Mr. Owen's class.
My name is Gianna Tabrino. My name is Sean's class.
My name is Agatha Petrosino, and I'm in Miss Cohen's class.
So next, they'll be taking you through what the 6 elements of art are and how they apply to this painting, that Vincent van Gogh painting called The Starry Night.
Texture. Vincent used his brush and thick blue paint mixed with greens and whites to create texture. Here in the starry night, in the night sky. Color. There are many different kinds of colors in the starry night. We see yellow, orange, green, and blue.
Yeah.
Line. Van Gogh showed us how he was feeling by using thin lines and thick lines of paint. Values. This painting has over 15 kinds of values of blues. Some are dark and some are light. Space. There is space between the yellow stars, blue sky, and the moon. There is also space between the small town and sky. Shape. We can see wonderful shapes in the lower center of the painting. There are small blocks of yellows, orange, and greens.
Okay. Well done. Now I'd like to introduce Mrs. Berger, our music teacher.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Marina Berger, and I am a music teacher at Brookside Elementary School. And it's been a privilege working with such wonderful and talented students here at Brookside. In my teaching, learning and fun go hand in hand. And let me tell you a little bit about what we do in music class at Brookside. In music class, we'll learn about the world around us using the language of music. We'll learn about important musical concepts using special music vocabulary. Musical language is a foreign language, and many terms we learn are in Italian or Latin language. Learning how to read music is a process that is very similar to the process of learning how to read. Decoding musical symbols on the musical staff, looking for specific rhythmic and melodic patterns, keeping a steady pace, and looking ahead strategies are the same pretty much strategies that children use while reading. We also study biographies of world-famous composers and the time and the places in history when they were creating by using fiction and non-fiction literature. Now, counting and fractions are essential concept of music and math. Music is an exact science. Timing, frequencies, changes in melody, harmony, and volume play a central role in understanding musical language. But most of all, music is art. And now, without any ado, let me present our Brookside third graders. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Connor Fastigi. My name is Adriana Albano. My name is David Beitler. My name is Maeve Ryan. My name is Brendan Mooney. My name is Haley Carter.
My name is Max Vanderbeek.
My name is Naomi Banner.
My name is Gabriel Hughes.
My name is Nicoletta Bellis.
My name is James Madden.
My name is Spencer Kitts.
My name is Krishna Kumanan.
My name is Gianna Keller.
My name is Justin Morales.
My name is Raji Crawford. My name is Katie Negrelli. My name is Ali Puerto. And we are all third graders from Brookside Elementary School. We would like to share with you what we are learning in music class this year. In third grade, we are studying about the world's famous composer. Just like authors write books and illustrators create pictures, composers make music.
Our composer of the month is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
W.A. Mozart was a classical composer. He was born in Salzburg, Austria in 1756.
It was very common for people who lived in the 18th century to wear wigs. Mozart wore one too.
Wolfgang was a child prodigy. He was talented musically from the early age.
Did you know he first composed his first piece of music when he was 5?
Did you know that he had his first composition published when he was 7?
Did you know he wrote his first opera when he was 12?
By the time Mozart was 6, he was an excellent pianist and violinist.
He and his sister Maria Anna traveled all over Europe performing for royalty.
Mozart wrote over 700 works, including symphonies, concertos, sonatas, and operas.
In music class, we listened to Turkish Ronda from Mozart's Piano Sonata number 11 in A major. Mrs. Berger asked us to complete a school poem during the listening.
SQUILT stands for Super Quiet, Uninterrupted Listening Time. We were listening for dynamics, soft and loud sounds, rhythm, short, long note patterns, instrumentation, and a mood of the composition.
We've learned that Mozart used a combination of soft and loud sounds in the Turkish Ronda.
We also noticed that the music moved quickly, which means the shorter sounds were present.
During the listening, we recognized that the only instrument that was playing was the piano. Even at times, it sounded like a violin and a guitar.
The mood of the composition was very exciting and joyful.
We learned the Mozart rap. We would like to sing it to you.
Mozart's first musical composition was a minuet in F major.
A minuet is an old-fashioned dance that people used to dance at parties.
Please enjoy our performance of the minuet.
Thank you, boys and girls. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to showcase some of our work in the special area classes. A very special thank you to Ms. Sharon DeBrino, who worked so hard to coordinate this evening's presentation. A special thank you to all the parents for bringing your children out this evening. And I would like to thank the Brookside faculty and staff for coming out this evening. And if you don't mind, I would like to ask that they be standing and recognized. Okay, let's see. Ms. Johnson, Dr. Sander, Ms. Wordsman, Ms. Zoyce, Ms. Bracco, Ms. Fry, Ms. McAleer, Ms. Brancati, Mr. Giatrakis, Ms. Santasuso, Ms. Berman, Ms. Venezia, Ms. Cohen, Ms. Moralia, Ms. Luongo, Ms. Cahill, Ms. Coletta, Ms. Foley, and Ms. Menzie. Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening.
Mrs. Amerling, how lucky and fortunate you are to have be the principal of such a wonderful school with so many talented students. And Mrs. Berger, the fact that they not only know all about Mozart and his great ability at musical compositions, but also the fact that you had Mozart here with us tonight is quite, we were trying to figure out how special. And Mrs. Berger, the minuet was absolutely beautiful. It was very, very good. I may have them come to the senior prom or the senior citizens prom, and I maybe that's where they should come. I'll change my mind. Senior citizens prom and do that beautiful minuet. And then also, Mr. Iannuzzi, I lost you for a moment. Oh, there you are. And Van Gogh and Starry, Starry Night. What a great book that you read to them, The Starry Night, forgive me. And all those wonderful things that you're teaching them about art and working in literacy through your program. Thank you for doing that. And gentlemen, who could have ever imagined that PE and word bingo can go together? And I was actually having a very, very good time. I don't know how I would have done with the jumping jack. Or what were they doing? Some jack. I don't know about that. But certainly I was having a lot of fun with the words in the hula hoop. I was actually going to show off. I'm pretty good with the hula hoop, but I decided to control myself. Forget it. Forget it. So I thank you all, and teachers, thank you so much for taking the time away from your families to be here with your other family, and for always making sure that the children are prepared, cared about, and certainly supported by all of you. And your presence here tonight, who could ask for anything more? It's just wonderful. I can't imagine that all of you would show up, and how grateful I am for that. So I thank you all. And parents, how lucky you are to have such great children. We're very proud of our students, as you know. We think that they are really wonderful in all ways and always. So we're so glad that you've come out and shared them with us in the evening so that we get a look and see all the great things that they're capable of doing. Thank you, boys and girls. And remember, when I need official Pledge of Allegiance students, you're the ones I'm coming to call. You were wonderful. And the minuet, senior citizens prom, that's around May. They might remember that dance. They don't have much luck with some of the modern stuff. And maybe you could even rap for them. I left out the rapping, Mrs. Berger. That was more than, I could have done that too, but you didn't ask. Next year. All right. Thank you all so very much.
Guys, can I have a point of order? I just want to move a couple things around. We have the external auditor here, and he's coming from Albany, so I'm going to ask if he can give his report first, and then we can move on to the rest of the agenda. Tom, we okay with that?
I'm okay. Yes. Sorry,
You
what?
want to take over from the external auditor report?
Okay, is that up now?
We're doing it right now, yeah.
Okay, so we're here to hear about the external audit report. We've got Alec from Ray Prusser Associates who's going to do a presentation, and then the board can accept the audit report.
Okay. Thank you. Good to see you all again. I'm sure you know, I met earlier with the audit committee and we did go over the report in detail, so I'll summarize that a little bit for you. The audit went extremely well this year. Tom and Kevin in the back there, and the entire staff are doing a tremendous job for your district. Their efficiency makes our job much easier. I wish all our audits could go as smoothly as this one is going right now, so you should be proud of what they're doing for you. As far as the audit goes, we always review your procedures, internal controls, and policies. We had no major concerns whatsoever. Your separation of duties and internal controls actually are pretty much excellent, so we have no concerns there at all. Financially, the report is very good. Your fund balance, your unassigned fund balance in a general fund is at the 4% level. That's 4% of your current year's budget, which is the maximum that is allowed by law. Not that some schools don't go over, but yours is very good. Your reserves have increased nicely to where they can be utilized going down the road. I know Tom has a financial plan for that, to use those to offset expenses as time goes on, which is very good. I think just going forward, budgeting will still be a little bit of a challenge. I say this every year, but I think Tom is probably the best budgeter that I deal with in all the schools that we have. Your utilization of the budget is excellent. I'd probably like him to go around to some of my other schools and teach them how to budget.
You got to pay him to do that.
Yeah, but the state is looking at schools that are, virtually over budgeting, which creates, bigger fund balances and stuff, and the state is cracking down on that with excess reserves and excess fund balance and not utilizing all of your budget, which means you're overtaxing the taxpayers. Your 97, 98% utilization of the budget every year is outstanding. So congratulate Tom again on that. It's terrific. That's really all I have. It's a very good report. We only made a couple suggestions on policy additions, which we talked about, which are minor. That's really all I have, unless you have any questions.
Terrific. Tom, did you have anything you want to add? Summarize for us?
I'll just summarize. The audit committee did meet with Alec before the executive committee. We reviewed the results of the audit report. We asked questions, went through all the details, and the audit committee was very happy with the results. So no outstanding issues or questions. Unless, I don't know if anybody on the board has any questions they want to bring up now.
Did anybody have any questions? Anybody? Christine, Anthony?
No.
I just had one question, and that is, it's something we tend to get hit with each year, and that is the extra classroom activities report, which says that our extra classroom activity people are not following the rules. And I don't know what we're supposed to do about that.
Well, we have a new person in charge of that, whom we're meeting with tomorrow. The objective is to get the greater ownership of and responsibility down into the club level where they're supposed to be doing a lot of this work. So that will be the objective of tomorrow's meeting. And hopefully once we come out of there, we'll all have an understanding of just how we'll be able to accomplish that.
Yeah. I've talked to Kevin at length, too, about that and given him an idea, and he has the idea, too, of what should be done and what shouldn't be done. So just need more involvement of students, especially at the middle school level. There's question about that. And just normal things like when, money being turned in, bringing backup of who paid the money in. So it's, you're not turning in $1,000 when you really collected $1,500, so you're vulnerable there. You're more vulnerable for theft than you are, in Tom's office. So there are ways. I find it, when person in Tom's position and Kevin's position start writing hurt over it and say, hey, we're getting these audit reports every year. This is what has to be done, to safeguard the money, basically. So it's hard. We have basically most of these comments in all 30 districts that we do. Some are better than others, some are worse than others. but the gist, they just need control and backup on where the money comes from, where the money's going, not just plopping it on somebody's desk and say, here, deposit it for me. There needs to be accountability.
Okay, and you guys are going to handle that? Perfect. And then just one of the questions you made, comments to policies. Can you get those to Tom Donatelli so he can pass them on to our policy committee?
Already have.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it, and safe travels back to Albany.
Not a problem.
Thank you so much.
I'm 20 miles south of there, so it's okay. I enjoy coming down. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Tom, the recommendation from the audit committee is to accept the audit?
Yes.
Okay. So can I have a motion to accept the independent auditor's report for the Yorktown Central School District prepared by Raymond G. Prusser, CPA PC, for the 2012-13 school year?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now we're going to go back up and we're going to move things in order.
That's okay.
Lisa O'Shea asked if we could do the social worker report now.
Snap the cap.
Which agenda item is this, Jackie?
This is superintendent's report of social worker.
Okay.
601.
Got it.
Karen's the reason we had to cancel our dance number.
No, you were just intimidated by those Brookside kids. Let's just really admit it.
And
They're
Lisa,
scary.
I just want to say to Karen so that she knows, I broke my foot last year. It didn't work. No sympathy whatsoever. So you can hobble around all you want. It doesn't matter.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to allow our social workers to share a little bit about their roles and responsibilities within the Yorktown Central School District. The slide that you see here talks about what the district really takes pride in, and that is the education of the whole child. So we look at all aspects in our planning for our programs to include academic, social, and emotional development, performing arts, fine arts, school athletics, clubs, organizations, character development. And what you'll hear from our social workers today is the critical role they play in developing the social and emotional needs of our students. Without that component, none of the rest would be possible. Our social workers are part of our pupil personnel department, which includes our psychologists, our speech-language pathologists, our occupational therapists, our special education teachers, and our nurses. And in conjunction with our building administrators, we work collaboratively with our general education counterparts to support the needs of the students in the district. Our school social workers are master's level clinical mental health professionals. They're licensed to provide services that promote social, emotional, behavioral, and academic success. They are truly our link between the home, the school, and the community. We have 5 full-time social workers in our district. We divide up their caseload based on needs in the district each year. Katie Wordsman supports our primary K-3 building. She spends 2.5 days a week in Brookside and 2.5 days a week in Mohansick. Eileen Olivieri supports mostly her 4 days a week. She's at Crampond. 1 day a week she's in Brookside supporting our 2 812 special classes there. Penny Jones works in our middle school. She is 4 days a week in the middle school and 1 day a week at our alternative high school. Teresa Murdoch, who unfortunately couldn't be with us this evening. Her husband had surgery earlier today. He's doing well, but she is with him. She spends time between the middle school and the high school, special classes in those programs. She also acts as our transition coordinator for students in terms of linking them up with adult services and preparing them for life after high school. Karen Profita supports the social and emotional growth at Yorktown High School. So in order to get a good feeling for what our social workers do throughout their day, I'm going to turn it over to Katie Wordsman to begin.
Thank you very much, Mrs. O'Shea, and I'm happy to be here tonight to share with you about the work that we do as school social workers. I really think that this slide speaks most to the heart of what we do and why we do it. If you remember nothing else from tonight's presentation, remember these words. I cannot teach the head when the heart is broken and the mind is troubled. And these words were not spoken by a social worker, but rather by a teacher who rightly recognized that children are not available for learning. Regardless of the curriculum, the standards, the way we differentiate, children are not available for learning when they are struggling with matters of the heart and mind and are preoccupied with these struggles. The reality is, though it may seem otherwise at times, all of our children want to succeed. However, many of our children come to school each and every day burdened with overwhelming obstacles. These obstacles may be related to mental health issues that they suffer from, like anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic, depression, eating disorders, or substance abuse. Or disabilities like autism spectrum disorders, attention deficit disorder, or learning disabilities. They may be related to family issues such as parental alcoholism, mental illness, domestic violence, family dissolution, or divorce. More and more of our children today are coming from families with significant financial worries. Will we lose our homes to foreclosure? Will we be evicted and face homelessness? Do we pay rent this month or food for our children? Children come to school each day unavailable for learning because the police have paid a visit to their home the night before, because parents have issued orders of protection against one another, because someone at home was taken to the hospital in the middle of the night. We have kids that come to school unavailable for learning because they have suffered the greatest loss that a child can suffer, the death of a parent. I often have people ask me when I tell them what I do and that I work in a K-3 building, what kinds of problems do such little kids have? Well, you'd be surprised. We have children who struggle to quiet the voices in their heads, control the twitches in their bodies, who are grieving the death of a parent, and who are recovering from trauma of abuse and neglect. Clearly, these children are not available for learning. Along with increased educational demands, teachers need support in addressing both the academic expectations and the mental and emotional needs of their students. They cannot and should not be expected to go that alone. Social workers have the necessary expertise to partner with teachers, school nurses, school psychologists to address the needs of the whole child. And now I will hand it over to Karen.
I'm going to attempt to use only one crutch.
Do you want to sit down?
No, it's okay. Okay, so we've now divided up our presentation into the social worker as a counselor, as an educator, and as an advocate. And I will first speak to the social worker as a counselor. Much of our work in our day-to-day goings-on in the schools revolve around the counseling role that we have. A lot of what we do is involved in the mandated counseling. We service between kindergarten through 12th grade about 150 students per year. But another vast majority of our work is on crisis intervention. Unfortunately, as Katie spoke of, there are many crises that occur both in our community and the other communities around us. As social workers, we are often called upon to put out the fires that turn up in kids' days and in their lives. We do threat assessments. We do family interventions. We assess students who might be suicidal, and we look into whether or not they need to be hospitalized. We do we then refer them, for psychiatric evaluations, and then follow up with the hospitals and check on the students' well-being and make sure that everyone is safe. And then we do reentry meetings when they're ready to return to school. We deal a lot with students with anxiety and panic attacks. And at the elementary level, it could look like a student who can't leave mommy and can't come into school, so the social worker goes out, meets the bus, helps them get into the school building. At the high school level, it's students that are having heart palpitations and, true panic as an adult would feel and can't participate in the learning at all, and often will end up in the nurse's office, and we deal with that. We also, unfortunately, have dealt a lot with community crises. We've had deaths of parents, either by accidental or suicidal, and we've had deaths of our students. The building level counseling that we do is social skills groups, banana splits groups. We deal with family issues, and we do a lot with bullying, conflict resolution, and most recently with the Dignity for All Students Act. We also provide counseling as a liaison. Many of our students, sometimes through our recommendation, are in private therapy outside of school, involved with community agencies, and we will be a liaison and be in touch with those therapists to help make that link so that we can know what the students need for us as school professionals to do, and then we will let the teachers know what would be helpful so those students can be most effective in their learning. We also do a lot of transitions. Our students go from building to building in this district, and as social workers with the psychologists, guidance counselors, and the other staff, we meet together and we plan for what's going on with students, so as they go from one building to the other, we're not relearning. We are able to inform each other on what's going on within families and for particular students. We also, when one family has a student in elementary, maybe middle, maybe high, we are the coordinators and we collaborate so that the different people know what's going on at different buildings. If, say, it's affecting an elementary school student, it may also be affecting their high school or their middle school. We work with the psychologists and develop and implement the functional behavior analysis plans and behavior intervention plans that we use for students who are struggling. We also develop intervention strategies and help the teachers so that students can be more successful in the classroom. And we teach students strategies to enhance their social and emotional functioning. Lastly, I'm going to speak a little bit about what Teresa Murdoch does, because in addition to all that we just described, she also does specific counseling for the students in the Transitional Academic and Social Support Program, our TASK program in the high school, and in our life skills programs at the middle school and high school. And she also does transitional planning for the post-high school job readiness and adult services. She does assessments with special ed students. It's called COPS and CAPS, and it's career assessments that we do with 11th and 12th graders and with the students at the alternative high school. And now Eileen Olivieri is going to speak to you about our role as an educator.
Good evening. Although we do not have teaching degrees, we social workers share the role of educating the whole student in a variety of ways in our school buildings. In the elementary grades, we push into classrooms to provide lessons on character education themes and bully prevention. We're also called upon to support teachers during class meetings to address specific social issues and help resolve conflicts within their classrooms. As members of our building's PBIS and bully prevention committees, we work on creating school-wide lessons that teach PBIS, Dignity Act, and bully prevention principles. You may remember hearing about monthly heart lessons at Crom Pond and the PBIS, bully prevention, and character education lessons at the middle school during these schools' recent Good News presentations within the past few weeks. Mohansick and Brookside are modeling similar types of programs in the elementary schools. The social workers reinforce these lessons in our individual and group counseling sessions with our students. Teachers and families look to us as a resource regarding social, emotional, and behavioral issues. We consult with staff members and parents on a regular basis to provide information and guidance on appropriate intervention. We help educate staff as to the behavioral manifestations of specific disabilities, what behaviors may look like, what may be typical, or something to be concerned about. Of utmost importance to us is sharing the district's goal of maintaining a safe and supportive school environment for everyone. We incorporate research-based interventions and counseling programs in order to do so. Some examples of these include the district-wide PBIS framework, the Oveus Bully Prevention Program, the Second Step Social Skills Program for early elementary classrooms, as well as our counseling groups, Michelle Dunn's Social Skills in Our Schools for the Circle of Friends program in our 812 and Life Skills classes. As Karen Perfita had mentioned, we also use the Banana Splits program with our students who are experiencing family separation and divorce. As Dignity Act co-coordinators in our buildings, we work closely with our administrators and assist in investigating possible DASA infractions, which may then lead to our providing short-term counseling services, parent contact, and/or classroom interventions. We frequently consult with staff in the event of a personal or community tragedy and provide strategies and support in addressing the impact on a student, on a class, or the entire school. One year, for example, we experienced the death of several students' parents in a few of our schools, and we spent time in the classrooms that were directly affected discussing the grieving process and how we could help the students who lost their parents. We assisted the teachers with strategies, talking points, and answers to some of their students' questions, and also arranged for grief specialists from the community to talk with staff. Earlier, I mentioned a few of the building committees we participate in, PBIS and bully prevention. We are also involved in our building's instructional support teams, building emergency response teams, response to intervention, students against destructive decisions, and PS We Care, which is a district-wide committee. Finally, as educators, we provide professional development to teachers and to CTAs, either during faculty meetings or on staff development days, discussing some of the same topics that we talk to our students about: bully prevention, strategies, dignity for all students. So now Penny Jones will speak about our role as advocates. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Another role we fill as social workers is that of an advocate, where we support and promote the interests of our students and their families. We consult on child protective services and domestic violence issues, and we serve as a resource regarding identification and reporting of abuse and neglect. We help connect families to community agencies and resources, and we bring a social work perspective to our instructional support teams and our committees for special education. We help assist financially needy families by linking them to organizations that assist with items like food, holiday gifts, and whatever items they may be in need of. We attend and coordinate community network meetings, often involving neighborhood school districts, and we serve on grief, trauma, and crisis teams. In addition, we collaborate with adult career and continuing ed services and vocational rehabilitation services, known as Access VR, and formerly known as VESIT, where the transition of planning post-high school job readiness and adult services are addressed with our students. In addition to collaborating with Child Protective Services, we collaborate with the local police department, Department of Social Services, Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, Department of Mental Health, SPOA, or Single Point of Access, which is also through the Department of Mental Health, BOCES and their intensive day treatment programs, psychiatric hospitals, clinics, psychiatrists, and psychotherapists. We help assist parents and guardians in accessing community programs and resources. We collaborate with community agencies on behalf of our families, and we help problem solve between families and the school. And so at this time, we would like to just thank you for the opportunity to be able to present to you tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry.
If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
First of all, thank you very much. It was really important. You know, it's interesting. Sometimes in Yorktown, you don't think we have problems. And these are problems you don't see. They're not broken legs and broken arms. So we really appreciate your giving us the time to tell us what you really do in the schools. And we appreciate everything you do in the schools. Pete, did you have questions?
No.
Tom?
Nope.
Mike? Aaron?
I can't believe how many things you guys do. I mean, it's just incredible when you really, I don't think a lot of people, I know that I don't stop and think about all the different areas that you are involved in, which it's just incredible, and I can see how it would be very different than working with the guidance, what their responsibilities are, what the psychologist's responsibilities are. So you serve a very big, I assume a number of kids in our district. It just seems to touch on everyone. The one question that I had is, we talked about mandated counseling, and what is an example of mandated counseling? Who mandates it? Is it just through an IEP or the courts, or?
Mandated counseling is primarily through the Committee of Special Education. So when a student is receiving special ed services, oftentimes counseling is part of their IEP or the individualized education plan. And when that is the case, then the counseling is mandated.
And do you also provide counseling sometimes to the parents as part of their IEP?
Oftentimes.
Parent training? Okay.
Yes.
Great.
As part of the IEP, and just as part of a service in servicing the student. You can't service a student without working with the parents, so it often comes as part of a package. You don't do extensive therapy or counseling with the parents, but you do help them in addressing the needs of their child.
So I guess just another piece of follow-up with this would be, years ago there didn't seem to be as many social workers or as much involvement as there is now. Where is the shift? How do you think that's changed? Or
in terms of why, or do we?
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the reasons is I think this district has actually been very forward-thinking in recognizing.
Can you talk in the microphone?
Yeah, I'm sorry. In recognizing the impact that all of these problems that we discussed and all of the obstacles that students face and how that impacts them. So I think the problems exist, and I think supports for families are being strained also. We have fewer, intact families. We have many more working families. We have many more families that are struggling with financial concerns, and I think all of those things are impacting on students, and as we said, making them less available for learning. And I think Yorktown has done a wonderful job in recognizing the impact of those things on students' ability to learn, and they have provided us with pretty wonderful support staff.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you all.
Anthony?
I might have a question. Actually, no, because thank you for all the work you guys do. And there's one missing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry she couldn't be here. So in the beginning, we have 5 schools, right? We have 5 schools, if I remember. And there's 5 of you guys. And I noticed in the beginning that it says like you have Mohansick and Brookside and middle school and Crampon. Why do you guys get split up like that? I mean, get up here, Lisa. Get away.
Just like we do in determining our special ed programs year by year, we really look at where are the needs of the students and what's the best way that we can provide services to all our students. So, for example, Crampon has the support of a social worker 4 days a week. It doesn't necessarily need that 5th day, but Eileen's time is better served going over to our more impacted students at Brookside, the 2 classes that are there to support them on the 5th day. Katie splits her time doing social work duties between Mohansick and Brookside, but she's not focusing, she's focusing on more of the general population, not those specific classes. So those are the reasons why. When you look at the high school, we have the additional transitional services that need to be arranged for, and that's why Teresa Murdoch's schedule looks like.
And somebody's permanently at the high
And Karen is permanently there as well. So we really look year by year to see where the needs are and how we can best make use of the staff. And I have to say that, we have 5 social workers, we have 8 psychologists that compose our clinical team, and there's so many things that I appreciate about being part of Yorktown, but I think that I really value our clinical team and all that they bring to the table, because we have often meetings. They're sometimes always productive, sometimes heated, but everyone's heart is in the right place and really wanting to see the students be successful across all domains. So it's a wonderful collegiate group.
Thank you. Good answer.
Christine?
You mentioned professional development and going to the buildings and providing it for the staff. Is that done during opening week of schools? Is that ongoing? Is there a schedule in place? Because that's, I think, a key component, because you're not in the classroom 24/7 with the teachers that may have students that are exhibiting emotional behaviors, social behaviors, and some of the other things that children come in with. So what's the plan in place for professional development?
I'll answer, but if I miss something, please join in. For professional development And for the teachers, a lot of that component happens as part of the monthly faculty meetings if there are certain issues in each building that need to be addressed. There's more casual conversations that take place as part of the school day if it's an individual student and the social worker meets with that team who works with that student. More what we do with our teaching assistants, because they're not often as available given their schedules as we would like them to be. We utilize our half days that we have, and tomorrow, for example, is a staff development day, and we provide training across all domains for them on those days.
Very good. One more question. What's an example of a strategy that you would teach a student who is struggling socially or emotionally? You're ready. And she's ready with the cry.
One of the things that we were talking about earlier was, I can give an example from today, which is why I'm the person that jumped up to answer it. I had a girl today, I got a call from the nurse. She was in a classroom, she started having a panic attack. She couldn't sit still, she couldn't breathe, she was feeling like she was gonna just she was climbing the walls. When she came in my office, she was like, I can't, Mrs. Provita, I can't do this, I can't do this. And so one of the things that we've worked with, like I said, the younger children and the high school students, are teaching them the strategies of how to work through something like that. So sometimes they'll try to do it on their own in the classroom first. They'll use deep breathing. They'll think good thoughts. They'll try to do a little mantra in their head telling themselves, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm in a classroom, I can calm down. And if they're not successful, then they will leave, either come straight to my office or a social worker's office, or they'll go straight to the nurse. And then the nurse will often get one of us, either have us come to her or she'll bring the student to us, and then she'll check the medical side of things, and then she'll have us do the calming and the working with the strategies. And a lot of the students, we try to teach them those strategies so they don't need us, so they can handle those situations on their own. But when they're really in the crux of it, oftentimes they need someone to talk them down.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Ralph, Lawrence?
I would just say thank you very, very much. We have a terrific support staff here, and in every sense of the word, our social workers very much bring to our attention those students where childhood is not a safe place, a peaceful place, or a happy place. And it's sad for us to think that, as you've pointed out, and yet it's our reality. And I loved the quote that you chose, Katie, if you were the one who did choose that. I cannot teach the head when the heart is broken or the mind is troubled, because most assuredly what makes us very different from the world of business is when something happens to a child, we just can't go on with our day like it didn't happen. And we've had evidence over the years here of so many students being hurt by untimely passing of their parent, or a serious illness of the parent, or in some cases their very own serious illness, which the rest of their family is trying to deal with. And again, you're always the first people on the really on the firing line to kind of get in and intervene and help the rest of us through with what needs to be done next, and then next, and then next again, until there's some kind of normalcy returned. And the one place that they do feel safe, oftentimes the only place they feel safe, is here in school with us. So thank you for creating that environment that does give the safety and support and the bridge for them to get back to some kind of normalcy. And again, always the goal would be that childhood would be that warm and wonderful place for everyone, but unfortunately we know different. Yes. So I thank you very much for being here tonight, and warm regards to Teresa Murdoch. I'm glad her husband's going to be okay. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
Lisa, did you want to introduce the psychologist also, since they were here? Thank you.
Some of our psychologists are here as well, and we have Arlene Klausner, Harriet Zoyce, Sue McGannon, and Lizette Gonzalez.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
And Denise Sandor, I'm sorry.
It's always so nice to see how staff comes out to support students and other staff, and we really do appreciate that you really, back up everybody, so thank you.
And Denise, tonight is your lucky night. You were getting kudos all over the place. You got kudos for coming for the Brookside kids. right? So, yeah, Mrs. Amerling said, and there's Dr. Sandor. So I said, isn't that great that she's here for the kids? And here you are again. So welcome, Denise, and thank you for coming.
Okay, so can we go on to the special ed report for education performance?
Sure, thank you. I'd like to introduce a person that needs no introduction. Welcome, Mrs. O'Shea. Actually, Mrs. O'Shea is here with to report on the overview with Mr. Rosen, I believe, is here to report the overview of special education, looking at the processes that are using the student data, and we thank you for being here, so welcome.
We may want to excuse, I don't know, Mrs. O'Shea, if you want to excuse the social workers and the psychologists.
Yes, let them go ahead.
Yep. Have a good evening, everybody.
Yes, thank you for staying.
Who's ever staying, thank you. Who's ever going, have a good night, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
So Mr. Rosen and I hope to be able to outline the process and procedures relating to special ed referral, eligibility, and program development. We also hope to communicate current data regarding special ed in Yorktown at this time, and we hope to share with you our identified areas of focus for the school year. When we talk about special education, we're really encompassing several different forms of regulation through New York State Education Department. We have IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We have Part 200 regulations, which are the special education regulations. We have the Part 100 regulations, which are the general education regulations, and we have the process for RTI, or response to intervention. So all of those pieces play into what we do in terms of our procedures for special ed. Our pre-referral interventions consist of our RTI process, which is when we screen students, we do progress monitoring, we provide research-based practices for the students, and we chart how they're doing on those interventions. We use instructional methodologies, various methods, strategies, and materials. We talk about differentiated instruction. We provide supplemental aids and support services to students, behavioral interventions, staff training and support, and increased parental involvement. We also have services for our students with ESL. We rule out any other option that we can take with students before we move to the special education process to be sure that we're truly identifying students with a potential disability. A big part of what we do is the CSE, or Committee on Special Education, and the CPSE, the Committee on Preschool Special Education process. Again, the process is divided into steps. It's referral, evaluation, eligibility determination, and IEP development. IEP stands for Individual Education Plan. Implementation of that plan, and an annual review for each student. When we have a Committee on Special Education or a Committee on Preschool Special Education meeting, it's the role of the committee members to review and discuss the information and evaluations that identify with the needs of the child. So it can be formal evaluations, it could be a speech evaluation, it could be progress monitoring from response to intervention, state test data, a child's transcript, any medical information that may be provided by the parent, classroom tests, anecdotal notes from staff. All of those things are part of what we look at when we look to see if a student has a disability. In order to determine eligibility for classification, there needs to be a specific set of criteria or a disability with which the student falls within. Then once an eligibility for special ed is determined, if it's determined, then we need to recommend programs and services based on the needs of the student. So the Committee on Special Education develops an IEP to address the strengths and needs of the student, their academic needs, their management needs, physical needs, social needs, transition service needs, and based on all that, they develop goals and then recommend the appropriate program. So you have to identify what the student's areas of needs are before you identify a program that they'll reside in for their services. You implement those services, and then you conduct an annual review yearly or more frequently if there's a change of function or a request from staff or parents. There are 13 areas of disability that children through New York State that would be identified as a student with a disability. You must fall under one of those categories in order to be considered eligible for special education, and those have strict criteria from New York State Education Department. So sometimes we struggle. There are students in our district who are perhaps struggling learners and may have a C average. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're a student with an educational disability and are eligible for special education. That's where all of our response to intervention and extra supports on a building level come into play. When we talk about our continuum of services, that basically means what types of programs do we offer for our students along a continuum of least restrictive to most restrictive. And as you can see from this chart, a general education setting is the least restrictive environment for a student with a disability. Then you can have a gen ed setting with related services, consultant teacher, indirect support or direct support, integrated co-teaching, which is one general ed teacher and one special ed teacher with no more than 12 special ed students in a classroom and 12 non-classified students. Resource room, a special class, which is a special ed teacher with only special education students, a small ratio. There's special day schools, which are basically a BOCES or a private school in the area that we send students to whose needs we can't meet in district. We have had students who are home and hospitalized, instruction based on their medical needs and inability to come to school. And the most restrictive setting would be a residential setting where students are provided with 24-hour care and education. If you look at our numbers, we have had some decline in our number of classified students. The third column in, we have 519 classified students this year. Out of those 519, 36 of those students are placed at out-of-district programs. Those are students whose needs are beyond what we can support in the public school setting. Even though we've had a decrease in numbers of classified students, our general overall enrollment has decreased. So we've maintained a consistent classification rate. Classification rate is what compares us to the state average. Are we overclassifying students as having a disability? Are we within the state average? And we've consistently been slightly lower than the New York State average for eligibility. And I think that's a good place for us to be. We've consistently been about 12% of our students are eligible for special education. Mr. Rosen's going to talk to you a little bit about the least restrictive environment.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us here tonight. This slide really talks to a lot of what we've been working on over the years. I've had the opportunity to be in the district for a while and really watch our programs change. If you look at this slide, back in 2008, 2009, only 35% of our students were spending 80 to 100% in general education. And over the years, we've changed that to, and the state target at that point was 54.5, so we were 19% below the state average. In 2012 and 2013, we now have 53.2% of our students who are spending 80 to 100% of their time with their general education peers. We really looked at it in the next few slides. We'll really take you through grade by grade what we looked like in 2008, 2009, and what we looked like in 2013, 2014. Starting right with kindergarten. Back in 2008, 2009, we had one section of an integrated co-taught class, one section of special education. Now we have one half-day section of an ICT kindergarten class. In first grade, we had two special education classes. Now, at first grade, we're running two sections of an integrated co-taught class. We, this year, have one section of a 1-2 class. In second grade, we were running three special classes back in 2008, 2009. This year, we're running one ICT class at Brookside, one at Mohansick, and that's the two that we're running. In third grade, we were running four special classes back in 2008, 2009. Now we have two sections of ICT and two sections of a special class. In fourth grade, we had only fourth and fifth grade, we were only running special classes back in 2008, 2009. Now we run two integrated co-taught classes in both fourth and fifth grade, and they both have one special class. Our multi-grade classes, we had three back in 2008, 2009, and we continue to have three. But the difference is we are not running a grade 2-3 special class this year. Back, just like we talked about with the social workers, we really do look at the needs of the students. So this year we have a K2 class, that's an 812 for kids with special needs. We're running a full-day kindergarten class for students with special needs. That's a 12-1-2 that's listed up there. And we continue to run our 8-1-2 at Crom Pond for the 4th and 5th graders. Grades 6 through 8, it's a little bit, you just have to read through it. We are now down from 29 special classes to 24. The 41 ICT periods that we had back in 2008, 2009 actually do correspond to the 28 ICT periods and the 13 skills periods that we have. The middle school is always ahead as far as integrated co-taught classes, thanks to Mrs. Grimm. So that has really continued to be in line from back 2008, 2009. And you can see at the high school over the years we've increased from 17 periods of ICT. We are currently running 26 ICT periods at the high school. We have 3 more resource rooms. We went from 16 to 19. And our number of special class periods dropped from 22 to 16. So it just goes in line with that first slide that really talks to our students spending more time in the general education population and our parents. Over the years, we now have, when I go to meetings, we can talk to a continuum of service that we have here in the district. Students get what they need, and then when you look at that number of 36 out-of-district students, that goes in line with all the programs that we're able to run here in the district, because while some of those students came back, most of those students never left the district. They've been here since kindergarten and go right up to grade 12. In the department, we have the director, the assistant director. We also now have 47.1 special education teachers. That's down from 2008, 2009, where we had 56.6 special education teachers. We have 8 psychologists. You met our 5 social workers, 7.5 speech pathologists. We have 2 occupational therapists, and we have 1 certified occupational therapy assistant, and we have 7.5 nurses in the district.
Every year we identify areas of focus moving forward into the school year, and there are a number of things that we're working on this year. One, the state has determined that there'll be no longer a granting of an IEP diploma, and they've replaced that with 2 new credentials, non-diploma credentials. One is called the Skills and Achievement Commencement Credential, and the other is the Career Development and Occupational Studies Commencement Credential. Particularly the second one has specific requirements that we need to have in place for students to meet those requirements. So we're looking at our curriculum and our services at the high school level to be sure we'll be able to offer that credential to students who can fulfill those requirements. We're also looking to examine our procedures for child find obligations for our district of location, district of residence students. And we're also looking to continue to work from last year on our regulatory requirements for Section 504 eligibility. We do work closely with our lawyers to review any latest case law and anything related to 504 and child find, and that helps us fine-tune our own procedures. What we're doing this year, which is not on the slide, every year we have a performance indicator that the state needs us to collect data for, and then they judge our performance on that performance indicator. And this year it's on parent participation. It's a parent participation survey. So all of our students with disabilities, their parents will receive a survey in the mail that will be sent from us, but sent straight to the contractor for the state education department, and we will be judged on how parents feel they've been involved in the planning process for their students. So we're hoping to perform well in that regard. I think we do work hard to get parents to feel that they are included in the process, so I'm looking forward to those results.
Thank you very much. Very tough. And thank you for the two-year education plan. It was quite a job. We'll start. Christine, do you want to start with questions?
How do you plan what special ed programs you run each year? Is that done through annual evaluations, or maybe I should have you answer before I ask the question and then I try to answer it?
We start pretty much next month. We'll start asking our teachers to project what programs we'll need the next year. They give us back their information. We'll meet with all the teachers, really go through all their projections. It's tough. It's December where they're planning for September of 2014. So we know those might change. They might change prior to the annual review. Sometimes it changes after the annual review, but it gives us an idea of what programs we might need to run year to year. We also do the same at the secondary level, where the information comes back to us. We will meet with the guidance department, the TCs in the building, the principals in the building, to really look at the needs of each student and look at what programs we're going to have to run the following year. We try to be as far ahead as we possibly can, especially at kindergarten. I deal with the preschoolers, so we try to know who's coming 2 years out. So we're already looking at kids coming in September 2014, and I have an idea of who will be coming 2015, so it really helps us from those lower level classes on what the students need. We have a whole process for those students where we'll go out and observe them. We meet starting in January with all the kindergarten staff to start arranging to go observe those students and have meetings so that we are aware of who's coming in for kindergarten and what programs that we need to run.
Anthony?
Curiosity's sake, I guess it says the student count is down because the enrollment is down, you think?
The enrollment is down, but we also have a lot more students getting building level services, response to intervention. So a lot more is going on before they come to special education. A lot of those students are making progress with the general education support, so they're not coming to us. And we do have lower number of students in the district overall as well. So that's a piece of it as well.
I have one other question that is just curious. It says the classified rate is 12%, and I see the New York State is 12.8, but you don't use that as a benchmark. It almost reminds me of a cop giving tickets as a quota. What it is what it is. In other words, if it's 15% for the year, so be it. Is that right, I hope?
Go ahead.
We look to stay within reason of the average of where New York State is, but it doesn't mean we need to be there every year. So exactly what you're saying, we're looking at individual students. If we were to have a pattern of year after year of having significantly higher than the state, then we're not accurately making determinations when we're sitting at a CSE meeting that the child actually has a disability.
But that number doesn't influence you.
The number
Is what
does
I'm
not
saying.
influence you, but it would help you change your programming or the way you approached your committee on special education meetings if you were significantly over what everyone else is doing.
Okay, thank you.
Jackie, can I just ask a follow-up to that question? How does the state determine what the classification level should be?
We are living in a world of such data, and special education has had data looked at from New York State for years and years and years. So I can go online and I can see the classification rate of every district in the state. I can look at then what the average is for the state. The state checks on us to see what we're doing for not only our classification rate, but for issues like I was talking about the parent survey, they also take data on a year out after students have aged out or graduated. They do a survey of those students who've been gone from us for a year, and they collect data on, do they feel that they were prepared as part of the Yorktown School District? Are they currently employed? Are they currently in school? So there's so much data that the state collects for us. There's preschool data that we're responsible for. So every year there's a whole website where we can look at all kinds of information. Did I answer your question? No?
Kind of.
You want to say it again? Maybe I can do better?
I guess so. That classification rate, do they take demographics into account for anything? I guess there's a number there, and how do they get to that number?
Their number is an average of all the school districts in the state, of all 700 school districts. So that's their number.
Okay.
When you go on, you will see certain districts. I was looking online, and there was one district up in upstate New York that had a 20% classification rate, and I was a little surprised by that. But I don't know the demographics of that region. To me, it just stood out as, are they providing pre-referral interventions for students? Do they have reading support in the class before the children go to special education? So those were the things that were part of my mind.
Can I have one other piece of follow-up with that? I'm sorry, Florence, did you want to say something?
Just one other thought. If you go back to the thinking and the belief in part of the law that says there are 13 disabilities, each one of those disabilities, the incidences of those occurring in children, that's a study in itself. And then that might lend to what a classification rate might be in a school district in New York State. It's a way to measure your program, the 12%. I've been in districts that might have 13 or 14%, some years 9. It just depends on your student population, but it's a way to measure and look at best practice based on that research.
And is there also not a piece of reality that if you are a school district that offers a really good special education program, people move into your district for that reason in particular, as they do for advanced classes or whatever sports or whatever their interests are. But a lot of families do that as well, and that might add to the numbers as well. Just, I've spoken to a lot of families about our programs over the years, so I'm the one, sorry.
Well, Tom, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, it's a follow-up really to the classification thing, and I'm assuming the state has a standard of, what defines somebody to be classified. And the question is, do they change year over year? Have they changed significantly over the last 5 years?
There are 13 classifications, and each one has specific criteria. When you come to the committee, you look at that criteria and you determine if that student fits that profile. They have made some changes. What used to be considered, now it's intellectually disabled. It was MR. So they changed the title for mentally retarded. They did away with that and changed it to intellectually disabled, but the criteria for that category did not change. There has been some change to how you identify a student with a learning disability, and a key part of that is the response to intervention process. You can no longer identify a student with a learning disability just based on one psychoeducational evaluation. You have to take into account all that response to intervention, progress monitoring data that you've collected over time.
And just one last, so who on the staff has the final sort of say as to whether a student should be classified or not?
It is a committee that meets, which is a general ed teacher, special ed teacher, psychologist. It's an initial classification. It's either Mike or I running the meeting. There's the teachers, there's the speech person if there's a speech issue or speech concern, and there's parent. So a conversation takes place at that meeting. You hope for consensus. However, the bottom line is that the CSE chairperson makes that final decision if there's not consensus. So that would be me or Mike.
Okay, thank you.
So I've been involved with Yorktown Special Education Program with my son for the last 17 years, and I really can do the math. My son is now a senior, he's 20, but it's been 17 years since he transitioned in when he was 3 into CPSA. So I can so appreciate all of the changes that have come and continue to come. And I'm just absolutely thrilled with the direction that we continue to move in. One of the questions that I have is regarding the least restrictive environment. And we talk about the general education setting and the percentage of the kids that have changed. And I can understand why the numbers have changed so substantially. I think it's in the past, it's just not anything that we really focused on. And Lisa and Mike, with your leadership, we've really, and Florence, we've gone back and we've looked at it, and now you've added in all these integrated co-teaching classes, which are wonderful. But when you look at the percentages of what the state's average is and where we're at, we're still really right there. So I guess what I'm wondering is, what's the game plan to really go beyond that? Because I know through private discussions that that's the goal, but we've already done the integrated co-teaching and things like that. How do we continue to involve kids in typical education?
I think it goes back to our planning year after year and our work with the staff and the teachers and the parents to get them to understand the value of having our children involved in the general education setting as much as possible, and that's to give them the training to differentiate instruction in that environment and to work as part of a team in a classroom with a general ed and special ed teacher. We do have a lot of opportunities here. I don't want to say that we're necessarily going to go beyond or not, because there are children in our district who really do need a smaller class environment with one special education teacher, and we don't want to lose that as part of our continuum, because then we're just going back towards all students will fit the one model, and that's not where we want
Well,
to be.
other than the obvious classes that we look at, what's a general education setting, when you look at lunch, is that considered a general education setting?
That's a general education setting.
When you look at extracurricular activities, is that considered?
Yes.
So,
Necessarily part of those, not necessarily
A part of those numbers.
part of those numbers. That is a general ed setting, but
so that cannot be a part of those numbers?
We don't put lunch on the IEP, so when you
Right.
calculate
But what about
time-
co-curricular activities? And the reason why I mention that is because, is it possible that we could use that? Because, like, I just know that in the high school, one of the things that we could do is we have our students that do community service as well. So we have a life skills class, and a lot of those kids, it's not easy for them to independently go to some of these activities and things like that. Or even on the back end, participate in, go to a football game, a dance, or anything like that where you're with that general population. If we made it part of an improved community service for some of our students, the kids would be able to be with them, they'd get the credit, the experience. Our kids would be able to go into a typical environment with typical kids without mommy or the teacher attached to it. I think it's kind of a win-win, and then as a bonus, if it happens to add our amount of time that they are with typical kids, because as a parent of a multiply disabled child, I would be very happy with that type of exposure for my child. That would be acceptable to me. I don't know if the state accepts that.
There's two separate things that I think you're looking at. Certainly, I appreciate, and our goal would be to provide more opportunities for our children in all domains, extracurriculars, after-school activities. But when we're looking at what the state average is in terms of time in the general ed setting, we're looking specifically at the data connected to the IEP.
Okay.
So what special education programs are they involved in throughout the day, not the extras. And that's the data we can pull from our
So even if you
IEPs.
put in the IEPs that they're going to participate in certain...
It doesn't get listed
matter.
under a
It doesn't
program
get
and service.
listed.
It's a great goal for us to move
So it's
towards, but
only
that
the
piece-
services that are listed
school day.
during the school day. Right?
That doesn't mean we don't want to have that as our goal beyond what the
No,
state is
I
saying, so that
understand.
goes
I
back
was
to what
just
we
looking at it, because you have like their statistics, and then you have, as a parent's perspective, really what effectively is the same type of experience. I mean, obviously not to negate being in a least restrictive environment during the day. I'm talking about an additional enhancement. So
Because we would know our number will be higher than 53%.
Exactly.
Right now.
Exactly, and that's why I just ask about that, because then that. But you guys have done a tremendous job, and you continue to. And I'm sorry that when parents ask me about our school district, I say such nice things and they move in. But it,
Wonderful. The more
I just
children we can help, the better.
I just so appreciate the efforts that you guys make and continue to make, and you guys really do it for the right reasons, and it's just wonderful to see. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question on the new diploma requirements. What is the percentage of our students that get the current IEP diploma?
It's a small amount, and I don't have that exact
Okay.
number for you, but the IEP diploma did phase out this past June. So now replacing it are the two other options, the skills and achievement commencement credential. That's for students who are alternately assessed through the New York State Alternate Assessment.
So will that be the same small contingency of students? It's not going to expand at all?
It'll be still very small, very slight. Most of our students will receive either a Regents or a local diploma. That's what we aim for all our children. What this does now is it gives us the second credential option for students who are not alternately assessed, but still with the supports cannot make the requirements for a local or a Regents diploma. Now they have the option for the, I never say it right, Career Development and Occupational Studies credential. That almost looks more like a work plan or a vocational education experience. So they have to have 216 hours of work-based experience and training in the career learning standards. They also have to have a career plan and an employability profile. In order to do that, they will then receive that credential. Students with alternately assessed will receive the skills credential. So it's 2 new options.
So
for
are these students who might be in the BOCES programs, the alternate vocational programs in BOCES?
Yes, and you can get that career credential as an addendum to your local or Regents diploma or as a standalone credential. So in December 4th? December 4th, we're having an evening meeting for parents for students in grades 7 through 12. With any parent of a student with a disability to learn more about this. And it changes, and we're learning more as time goes on.
And are these options parents are going to have for their, or students will have, or will these be recommended by
Again, this will be
CSE?
something that you're looking at your CSE. So every year at your CSE, you're looking at what is the diploma option that you're working towards for this child. What's going to become somewhat challenging is we are still working so hard to get students to achieve the local or Regents diploma, so we have them receiving all types of supports in that direction. But when then do we decide who needs the 216 hours of the career training in addition to this, and how do we get it all done? So those will be the conversations that take place at CSE meetings moving forward.
So just one other question on top of this, because I love the way New York State does it. So you're not phasing it in, it just starts this year. So what happens to students in 11th and 12th grade who haven't been on this path for any length of time?
And up until this upcoming June, the principal can make the determination based on experiences that the student has had to issue the career credential based on the program that the student has currently had. So even if we don't have it totally in place, which we don't have to do until a year from now, the principal can override and make the determination if the child is eligible for it for this coming end of the school year.
Okay.
And just the last piece to attach onto that, what is the general feedback of parents of special education students who are being offered these new choices of diplomas?
I don't think that there's been enough information shared with parents, either in our district or in our neighboring districts. We've had conversations at our local directors groups, and this information is just coming out there. I think what I have heard is some parents are discouraged by the fact that if you are a student who is on an alternately assessed student, that they don't have an option of getting the career credential, just the skills credential. So there's some frustration from parents on that level.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Anybody else have questions? Thank you so very much. We appreciate it. I know that we have to make a motion to accept the special education plan as presented.
Which I read.
I did too.
95?
200 pages.
There you go. I really did.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We appreciate all of your hard
Thank you,
work.
Lisa. Thank you, Mike.
I'm going to ask to switch one other thing around. We have people who have come here to speak for public comment. Can we just do public comment now and then go back to the agenda?
Sure.
So, Mike, do you want to read your little spiel?
We ask anyone coming up for public comment that all speakers properly identify themselves. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. You may comment on matters of public interest involving school operations and programs, but you may not criticize or personally attack any individual connected with the district. No district employee or student may be commented upon or identified by name or situation. All questions that are asked by the public will be referred to the appropriate staff member for reply, and questions that require further follow-up will be referred to the superintendent for consideration and a later response.
Okay, so the first public comment is on agenda-related items only. I believe you want to come up and speak? Just please identify yourself when you speak.
Hi, my name is Deborah Rogers. I'm a Yorktown resident and parent of 4 school-age children. I'm going to talk really fast because I know I'm limited to 3 minutes, so please don't buzz me. To our respected school board, I'm speaking to you today as an extremely concerned parent. Over the past few months since Common Core has come to my attention, I have spent many hours researching and learning the truth about the Common Core, the how, who, and why of it, and all I can say is that I'm deeply disturbed by what I found. I would imagine that by now we've already spent above and beyond the RTT money we received just to align our curriculum, and we haven't even begun to bear the cost of the technology the new standards will require. What I do know is that it will be unsustainable. Monetarily, issues aside, the biggest cost of swallowing the Common Core pill will be to our children. For the first time in over 19 years, my children expressed an increasing dislike for school. My third grader cries 3 times a week over homework, and last week called herself stupid as she could not complete her new Common Core math homework. She spent Sunday night sobbing that she was going to fail a science test being given today, and she's only 8 years old. I believe that a huge part of this Common Core mandated testing is just completely stressing our children out. Exactly how much classroom time is being used towards preparing for and taking the state mandated tests? How many days are our teachers being pulled from the classrooms for training, grading, or other matters pertaining to the Common Core? These are very important questions that the school board and parents need answers to. Most parents have no idea how much classroom time is being taken up and eaten away by the Common Core, or how many unnecessary tests their children are being forced to take. These tests are being given not only in math and ELA, science, and social studies, but gym, library, music, and art. I could go on for hours about the many disturbing aspects of the Common Core, but I'm only getting 3 minutes. As the president of our school board, it is your duty and obligation to the parents of this community to know and understand the underlying issues of Common Core. The federal government and special interest groups are making a power grab to control education across the country, and we cannot allow this to happen. I hope that you and your fellow school board members will stand firm behind the parents of this community in the belief that parents have the right to refuse their children out of these tests, as I plan to do. Do not buy into the disaster that is the Common Core state standards. Please send that message to the New York State Education Department. There are already school districts across Westchester County, New York State, and the rest of the country that are passing resolutions against the Common Core state standards, such as Spack and Kill, Hyde Park, Pleasantville, Rye, Pelham, Hastings, Mount Pleasant, and others. I would love nothing more than to see the Yorktown Central Schools join that brave list of school boards that are willing to stand up for what is right. Our children are not common. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anybody else want to speak?
Well, these are pre-tests. Those are the pre-assessment. That's APPO.
Good evening. My name is Marty Rogers. I'm a resident of Yorktown, and no, we're not ganging up on you. It's not just me and my wife. I apologize. It has come to my attention that the confidential and personal information of my child is going to be, or has already been, shared with a corporation called In Bloom. The information includes my child's name, address, phone number, grades, test scores, racial and economic status, disabilities, and disciplinary data, and most important, the Social Security numbers. In turn, In Bloom plans to share my child's personal information with vendors for profit without my consent. It has even been reported that New York State Education Department has already uploaded my child's information, as well as that of other public school children in the state, to the In Bloom data cloud. At the same time, In Bloom has said that it will not be responsible if the data leaks out in storage or transmission. Already, as a result of parent protests throughout the country, 4 states that had originally planned to participate in Bloom have pulled out, and more are in the process of doing so. I urge you to discuss the state's plan at a public meeting of the board, notify parents specifically what student data is being shared and for which years, and explain what rights we as parents have to either opt out or consent. Because In Bloom will start charging a per-student fee for its services starting in 2015, and the state has not made it clear who will pay for this, does the district intend to cover the costs? And if not, at that point or before, will you be able to permanently remove student data from the In Bloom cloud? Next, who will be responsible for notifying parents and for legally and financially covering the damages if our children's data is leaked out or used inappropriately? And again, please, as there is much concern and confusion about this matter, I strongly urge you to hold a public discussion as soon as possible to clarify to parents and taxpayers your position on the critical issue of the student's privacy, and to shed light on the district's current practices and future intentions with regard to sharing personal data with third parties without parental notification or consent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did anybody else want to speak? I'll answer a few things and then I'll let you go on. First of all, the school districts that you mentioned that pulled out of Common Core, I do not believe pulled out of Common Core. They pulled out of opting out of putting up their data. They pulled out of RTT, which is not Common Core. There's a big difference, so please understand that. We will be talking about our RTT withdrawal in a few minutes, and I urge you to go Wednesday night to the district-wide meeting where the superintendent and the assistant superintendent are going to be speaking specifically about Common Core and all of these issues. So, Ralph, I'll turn it over to you if you want to speak.
All right, what do you want to talk
Where do you want to begin? So I think the clarification is an important one. So it really isn't that they're withdrawing or opting out from Common Core. We're really not able to do that. What they're opting out from is the opportunity to load data onto a dashboard. So we're going to explain that, so I hope you'll stay for a little bit, because there is a little bit of a difference between In Bloom and then the dashboard. And whereas I feel comfortable saying that's what we're opting out from, I'm not 100% sure that the In Bloom is something that we'll really have the right to opt out from at the end of the day. I'm not 100% sure of that, even though we're planning to opt out. So as far as the Common Core goes, when New York State, you know that was a national movement, and we'll talk a lot about this on Wednesday night. So I won't be too redundant, but I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of it. Probably in 2009, a movement was started, and it really was started by a governor's group, and then took on some national prominence when President Obama became involved in it. And that was really to put more rigor into the curriculum and put more standardization into the curriculum by developing a Common Core protocol, a Common Core standardization. And every state that bought into the national profile or program, signed up to, take this responsibility on. So it's not something that, as an individual school district, you can excuse yourself from. Once New York State agreed to this, and more particularly, once they took Race to the Top funding, although we get very little funding here in Yorktown, we only get $28,000 over a 4-year period. There are districts, I think Lisa O'Shea used the number 700. I'm not quite sure if we're 700 districts in New York State, but close enough to it. There are districts that get a significant amount of money from the Race to the Top. New York State, all totaled, got $700 million. The majority of that money went to the Big Five, what they call the Big Five districts. New York City and Yonkers would be the ones you're most familiar with. Then it's Rochester, Syracuse, and Buffalo. So there are many districts that wouldn't opt out, even from what we're asking the board to opt out from, because there would be significant financial ramifications to that. The problem, as you're describing with your own child and her anxiety, this is something that we're certainly concerned about, and we're watching as best we can watch it. Common Core in and of itself is not a terrible thing. It's the rapid rate at which it's being pushed in. Assessments have been created before curriculums have been finished. Curriculums are changing. For example, right now it's the Algebra 1 regents that we're concerned about. It's still being written, and the teachers really don't know over the scope of a year the modules that they're going to have to cover, how they're going to fit those modules in, because they have a curriculum in place. So they just have not allowed the appropriate time. And of course, that's stress-provoking to the children. We understand that. The beautiful thing that they did this evening, what they were trying to demonstrate, I think, is that everybody is trying to promote literacy, even in classes like PE, in classes like music and art, just to ensure that the students are constantly being made aware of the things that are going to be expected of them. It was rushed very quickly, in my opinion. The appropriate amount of money wasn't allocated, in my opinion. The tests were created before the curriculum was in place. That's a fact. And there are lots of things that have created havoc for districts around the state. I'm going to let Dr. O'Connor, who's been intimately involved in all of this, speak to it, but I would say to you, just so that you don't go away thinking one thing is going to happen and something else is going to happen, we really don't have the ability to opt out of most of the things that you've described. The only thing that we're tonight asking the board to consider is opting out of putting any more data than we believe is necessary up without us knowing who's going to be viewing it, what they're going to be using it for, and we're very concerned about that. And what we've protected, we believe, in our many years of education, we've spent that time protecting children, and we can't turn our back on that now. And until we're clear where this information is going and how it's going to be used, we're not going to bless it going anywhere that we can stop it from going. And we do have a presentation that I really do hope that you would stay to hear this evening so that the board can make an informed decision on the resolution on the agenda.
I would just like to address your question about teacher training. We have adopted a very reasonable approach, and I'll describe that by saying we had the option of adopting all of this new curriculum in a one-shot adoption, or looking at our current curriculum and adapting it to areas that are included in the Common Core. We examined Common Core curriculum in ELA and mathematics and looked for generic strategies that we may pull from that curriculum to embed in our teaching today. The teachers are receiving training at a reasonable rate. They're as stressed as our children are, so we're trying to keep this in a calm, reasonable, sequenced approach. I believe we're doing the best we can do for the children, for the teachers, for the families in Yorktown, given the constraints and the mandates that we're receiving. We're in a good place in a greater sense because we've done a lot of curriculum work in the past. So we're tweaking our math, for example, to bring it up to speed. I'll give you an example, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, and then I'll stop. In ELA curriculum, we looked across the ELA modules and said the strategy of close reading is something that's good for students to know. It will also help address the Common Core standards, and that's a process, a strategy that we're teaching to students from our youngest learners to our seniors in high school. So that's how we've been reasonably approaching and dealing with the massive changes that have come about in an unreasonable amount of time.
Yeah, we hear you, we understand, we're watching it very closely. We have watched it very closely. We do understand that preparation time is being taken up in every classroom district-wide, because how could we have the kids unprepared for things that look very different from the way they looked before? On Wednesday night, we'll give you some examples of how the tests have changed, the difference of what students are going to be required to be able to answer in comparison to what they've been able to answer in the past, how it's affected scores. Yep, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we just segue right into the RTT and your report on that?
So tonight, we're fortunate we have two of our data managers with us, and the only two data managers we have, and we can certainly use a lot more. But we do have Maureen Dunleavy and David Lease here, and I think they're going to just explain what we've been struggling with over these past few weeks. So would you mind coming up, please?
Why don't they join us at the table so they don't have to stand the whole time?
Would you care to join us? And Rebecca, if you don't mind, maybe you can put up the graphic that... Oh, it's there. Oh, beautiful. I'm going to remember to wear my glasses someday, and then I'll actually be able to see.
You can sit. No, you can just sit. I can get up.
Mark is kind enough to give me his glasses.
Just go to CBS and they're reading it. Oh, okay. CBS. It's easy. Christine gets sandwiched in between.
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
You're going to need a mic, David.
Anthony, give Maureen your mic.
So what we've put up on the board here, what we developed for you is a top-level diagram of the basic data flow of where our student data starts, where we're comfortable with it ending, and then where the state's looking to make it go, and what we're not getting behind. So from this diagram, you can see that our data starts with the school districts. From our student information system, we do all our data collection in-house through our internal staff. From that point, our district, along with all the other consortium districts, pass their data up to the RECs or the BOCEs, where it gets all collected, and then as one solid group, gets sent up to the state of New York. This is the part of the process where we're very comfortable. This is something that we've been doing for the better part of a decade. We know that it's safe. We know that it's secure. At this point, they would like to start making connections to a cloud technology, this In-Bloom cloud. Excuse me, I'm sorry for
You
the
got to
feedback.
talk into the microphone.
Maybe you just need the mic in front of you. Is it possible to get it closer?
Is that a little better?
Yeah, that is.
Thank you, Chris.
Great.
Thank you.
Oh, good, now we're connected at the hip.
Now we're connected at the hip again. Where we're getting uncomfortable is this connection to the cloud, and specifically in Bloom, because now they want to take this data and push it into a system that we haven't actually had a chance to have our hands on, to see any testing with, or to see any proven confidence in its security. And then further past that, they want to go out another level to another set of private vendors to provide the dashboard data. That, in essence, is the data flow. I think there's a big division once we leave the state data warehouse and into that other side. You know.
Can you tell us what data points we currently upload as opposed to what they're asking us to do?
Actually, we're sending about, this is an average, I guess, about 100 to maybe 125 different data elements. My understanding is that they want to collect 400 data elements. Some of this we're not even collecting yet.
That's 125 data elements per student right now?
Yes, pretty much,
Could potentially be up to 125%.
Up to.
Yeah.
Depending on if they're receiving services and whatnot, we're collecting different pieces of information.
And right now, as far as we know, it sits in that NICED Blue Drum database, and we're very confident that that's got all the necessary sort of confidentiality, firewalls, et cetera.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Are student names attached to the data at that point?
Yes.
Actually, they've, several years ago, the state issued state ID numbers for every student. So at some point, they're probably pulling their student names off and are using that 10-digit state ID number.
But we don't know when it goes to In-Bloom if it'll go with that ID number or with the student.
We have no idea what In-Bloom will receive.
Can you just give us some examples of some of the new information that they're looking for?
Sure.
And I know we're going from like potentially 125 to 400, so
Yeah, no, I'll just give you a quick overview of some of the main
concerning
areas.
ones, right?
So what I'm going to share with you is right from the data dictionary for the data warehouse, which is on the NICED website. This is available publicly.
As of today, and it may change tomorrow. No, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that, but yeah.
Well, actually, yes, it was as
There
of
you
today.
go.
We did download
I was
one
going
late
to
this
say-
afternoon.
Isn't it terrible? I'm being
Yeah.
facetious, and it's
No.
true. I know.
Since our deadline for selecting, if we were going to select the data dashboard, was the 31st, apparently we're not the only ones who didn't pull the trigger. And as of last night, the 3rd, they've made a revised data dashboard, data dictionary. So what I'm sharing with you, we actually just downloaded about 5:30 this afternoon. Okay, so some of the primary areas where they're going to be looking to pull data specifically are in the areas of the state educational agency, the local educational agency, so about the basic district information, school level information, the buildings, and then when we get to student information, okay, they want to take discipline, they want to take program services and special ed services information, basic demographics, so age, gender, sex, all of that. Along with assessment information, they're looking to take assessment information as well. Now, parent information, addresses, phone numbers, contact information, relationship to the guardian or parent, staff and teacher information they're looking to pull, so what teachers and what staff are the children connected to, course information, what courses are they taking,
Can I just clarify, is this what is being collected now or what they're proposing?
These are the primary areas that they're looking to collect for the dashboard.
So they don't currently collect it?
No, they do not. This is not all the information that we're passing up now. This is not part of that 125.
Okay.
This is the full 400. Attendance data. You want to look at attendance data as well. That's all grades, assessments. And those are the primary, and then learning objectives. So those are the primary areas out of the 400 elements.
Of those areas that you mentioned, what do we currently upload now? What data points do they?
We send up student demographic information, name, address, gender, date of birth, if the student's an immigrant, whether or not they receive free or reduced lunch. And for enrollment, we'll send up the date they entered the grade, the current grade, if they've transfer out, the reason why. We have a whole list of codes that we have to use. For program services, we collect free and reduced lunch again, type of disability, students who take alternate assessments, any kind of AIS services, summer school participation.
Do we also send test scores?
At the end of the year, we'll send test scores. Again, depending on the time of the year, we're sending more data than another point. Don't come near me in June because I'm sending all these files and all this different information. Maybe October, November, it's much quieter. Special education information, which is pulled directly from IEP Direct.
So they already have a lot of this information.
Yes, the state has that information.
And they could, even if we opt out of RTT money, they could technically upload it to InBloom without our consent.
Yes.
Yes.
Are all the data points that we sent today a requirement of the state?
Yes, we do not send any optional data.
They're all mandated.
You didn't speak about the new scheduling. You have to send schedules from elementary school through high school.
now we
minutes
have
of
to,
instruction. Would you talk about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
In relation to the APPR, we're now sending student course linkage up to the state, so we could track what teachers are linked to which students for which courses.
We now have schedules for kindergarten students, their subjects, their teachers, grades K, 1, 2, 3. That's what we've been working diligently on to create accurate schedules, excuse me, I had a cough drop in my mouth, so that we have accurate linkage for how many minutes the student is with that teacher.
And this is a requirement for every school district in the state?
Yes. Yes.
What happens if you don't send the data?
Ralph will get a phone
Ralph
call.
gets email.
And we don't make AYP because a lot of this is what they use to determine whether or not we've made AYP.
What is AYP?
And state funding.
AYP is adequate yearly progress, and the school district report card includes that measure. You know, Mrs. O'Shea didn't mention that, but our students with disabilities each year, and we're very proud of it, make adequate yearly progress. So you forgot to mention that, Mrs. O'Shea. Thank you.
You also celebrated that we were in awards.
Oh, could we please, we'd like to add that we did receive in these turbulent times from State Ed, we were recognized as a high-achieving school at both our middle school and high school for having no gaps in our student learning, which is a bit ironic at this point.
So Ms. Carbone, I just want to address a comment that you made about, do we have the ability to stop them from taking it from the warehouse and putting it in Bloom? And the answer is no. But what they are saying is that if we do not opt into a dashboard, that they will not be given permission to go any further with that data. So they will not be put into a dashboard.
So why is it important for us, just so the board understands, because maybe I may have had a little difficulty really making the strong case, what is it that we're accomplishing by not going into a dashboard?
I think we're making the statement as a district that we're not confident in their system, and that if you are going to put it into a system where there are security leaks, we don't agree with it, and you're taking our data without our giving you the permission or our agreeing with you to do so.
Well, where could it land in a dashboard? Where could that information?
And once it's out there, it could go anywhere.
Districts have been charged with choosing one of 3 dashboards, each private vendors.
So we named the 3 choices.
Yes, Connect EDU, eScholar is another vendor, and then Pearson with their SchoolNet product is a 3rd vendor, which raises its own questions, especially Pearson and eScholar.
So we're looking at tonight deciding if we're going to withdraw from RTT. What is the potential ramification of pulling out? And I know, as usual, we don't completely know, but what are the possibilities?
Well, yeah, we don't really know, but of course, one of the things that we do know is that we have to give up the RTT money. And there is no excusing from APPR or Common Core, so that stays intact.
And parents, are parents allowed to opt their kids out of that?
No,
I don't know.
You're not supposed to do that. No.
As far as we know, they're not allowed to opt out. Just to clarify.
This is a fact sheet that was also handed down this afternoon late, and I'll read directly from it. And this is a fact sheet on Engage in New York. Are parents able to opt out of the Engage in New York portal? There's no provision for parents to opt out of the student data systems that are consistent with FERPA, such as Engage in New York portal. If parents were to opt their children out of these systems, everything from course scheduling to transportation to school lunches to high school transcripts for college applications would be impacted. It would be virtually impossible or extraordinary more expensive to conduct much of the day-to-day data management. In other words, what they're saying is to come out of the portal, we're not going to be reporting that data at all from the beginning, meaning in our student system. And all of that is linked to so many other things that it would be problematic to do so.
So on that note, will that opting out affect this?
No, that's different.
That's the district saying we're not going to put the data in the dashboard. We're going to maintain our data reporting up through State Data Warehouse. If they decide to push it into Bloom beyond our control, we're still not letting it go to a dashboard, but we're still collecting every piece of data that we're mandated, the 125 elements that we're mandated by the state to provide.
Thank you.
So the other piece is that when you asked us what else could potentially happen is perhaps in the future there may be some grants attached to RTT, and if you're not part of RTT, you wouldn't be eligible for those grants, I would suppose. But again, a district like Yorktown, we probably wouldn't have been eligible. Some of the districts that are remaining in, I'm sure that they're getting significant money, and their concern is that if they opt out, they lose significant money. And so that's the piece that doesn't seem to apply to us right at this juncture.
Is your mic on?
Oh, check my mic.
Question so if the state decides to upload the data from their warehouse to Bloom, once it's in Bloom, I mean, I know it can be insecure, but I know once it goes down to Pearson or one of the other 2 vendors, that parents can actually access it. Can they access it if it's in Bloom? Or is Bloom just a holding cell?
It's just a container.
Just a container,
The dashboard is the actual presentation vehicle. So that Connect EDU or the eScholar or the Pearson dashboard is that delivery of that data from Bloom container.
But we don't know, if you look at Bloom could sell our data.
There's no, at that point, they're in a private vendor's data store. Whereas the state is state governed, we're in a secure network within our lyric and directly to us. So that is one of our concerns.
Because if you go on Bloom's website and on their marketing privacy, that they kind of say that they have the rights once the data is there to market it in a way they see fit.
And there are several concerns with this. Over the course of the rest of the Race to the Top period, we have the option to select different vendors for dashboards. So if we don't like one, we can move to another. So now we're making multiple copies of data and putting it in places where how do we guarantee that they're not going to scrub that data or take that data or do anything else? And that's why we don't want that data going to those dashboards.
Okay.
Just an additional comment. In Bloom is a nonprofit. What's to stop them from selling it? Whereas somebody that is in business, the Pearson or eSchool Data, they'd be hesitant. They'd be derelict in their duties if they sold data because they would lose their clients.
But that wouldn't stop them from marketing to those same people. I mean, if you look at any of their websites, they say in order to access any data, you have to enable cookies, which means they're using you to market it.
Oh yeah, they're doing other things behind the scenes, yes. Just like you get your emails from Amazon. If you go buy something from Amazon, then you're bombarded with emails and, selling different things.
But even at that point, that marketing is different. They're maybe pulling cookies on how many districts are connecting to their service, but they're not looking at specific student data and using that for marketing, where the concern is that here that may happen.
Right. Okay.
Could I just try to summarize, just for people who are listening? It sounds like what we're saying is, we can opt out of RTT, but that won't stop us from continuing to submit these 125 data elements just as we have for the last 5 or 10 years. We have to do that in order to get our state funding. But if we opt out of RTT, we're making a statement that says we don't want our data going any further. And if parents are concerned about that data going any further, whether it's into InBloom or anywhere else, they need to address that with state legislators who are the ones making the decisions here. Right. Is that fair to say?
You did a great job.
Okay.
Yeah, great job.
That was a good job, Tom.
It really was. It really was.
Can we put on our website, can we put links to our state legislators for parents who have concerns about any of this?
That's a good idea. That's a
But
real good idea.
Is there also not one other piece that if we decide to opt out, there still is no guarantee that the state is not going to come back to us after the fact and still mandate that we give them additional information, right? We can't say that by doing this, that this will actually stop it.
Doesn't do anything.
Could they end up mandating that we all take part in the dashboard? Yes, the state can do that, yes.
Okay,
and
I
they
just
may.
want to be clear with that, like, we're, again, it's like you said, we're not giving our blessing, we're not going along willingly. We hope that this makes them stop and look at what's being done, but there's no guarantees. Okay.
And just one other point, not to this point, but back to Mrs. Rogers, something that you mentioned earlier when you had come up to read, the whole process of these the PE classes, the art classes, the music classes, all of those teachers have to create student learning objectives for the courses that they teach, even from kindergarten all the way up, so that when the teachers are scored, that information is used as part of the teacher's score. So that's the whole reason behind that. So even though that may appear to be a non-academic class or as you say, a third grade class or a first grade class, but every teacher is required to create.
Right, teachers that do not have state assessments that show growth have to create their own growth. And pre-assessments, that's a whole other topic. They're not a bad thing in terms of a teacher gets to know immediately what the students know and what they should be focusing on. It's actually a good practice in education that's used in many corners of the business. But we understand what you're saying. And we have tried to reduce the stress with our students on the pre-assessments. The teachers and principals have been working on that.
You need to teach the parents, though, what you're teaching the children, because we cannot help our third graders with their homework.
Yeah, that's a really strong point.
I really encourage you to go to the meeting on Wednesday night.
Yes,
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Maureen.
Glad it's a quiet time of the year for you, October and November. Isn't that what you said?
Well, relatively speaking, quiet was used very loosely.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to read this whole thing, guys. Whereas the superintendent of schools and the Board of Education of the Yorktown Central School District believe it to be in the best interests of the school district and the members of its school community to withdraw its participation under the New York State Education Department Memorandum of Understanding for the participation in the Race to the Top federal grant and aid program. And whereas pursuant to the guidance from the New York State Education Department, The district has fulfilled the following requirements for such withdrawal: compliance with all applicable state and/or federal laws and regulations, including the requirements of Education Law 3012C and Subpart 32 of the Regents Rules, filing the currently unsubmitted final expenditure report, annual program report, and the 1512 quarterly report for the period ending September 15, 2013. Yeah, you already spent your money in RTD. Therefore, now be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Yorktown Central School District, upon recommendation of Dr. Ralph Napolitano, Superintendent of Schools, hereby withdraws from the participation in the Race to the Top program, nullifying the school district's memorandum of understanding with the New York State Education Department, effective close of business November 4, 2013, and directs the district clerk to give due notice upon resolution to the New York State Department of Education Race to the Top Performance Management Office.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We are up to our public hearing. This is the continuation of our public hearing on our Code of Conduct. I don't know if anybody had any comments from the public on the Code of Conduct? No. Did any Board of Education members have any comments?
Nope.
We've all our questions have been answered. Can I have a motion to adopt the Code of Conduct with the new DASSA revisions in it?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I opened it. You have to have a motion, right, Rebecca?
That's okay. It says motion.
You want a motion?
I just want to make sure we don't have to do it next time.
It's getting late.
I agree.
We have appointments.
Okay.
A motion upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the following appointments be approved. Our 2013-14 winter coaches. We're just missing 2, which is really awesome.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have business office. We have a contract approval for Silent G. Be it resolved, the board president is hereby authorized to sign a contract between the Yorktown Central School District and Silent G Production for theatrical sets and related services for the production of Shadowbox for the high school in the amount of $5,000. A copy of said agreement shall be incorporated by reference to the minutes of this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have a second contract approval. On recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education hereby approves a proposal in the amount of $15,900 for the professional services to be provide the district with the enrollment projection and a school-wide demographic study. The board hereby authorizes and empowers the board president to execute the agreement with SES Study Team for the same upon approval by the district council.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, Tom, this is the demographic study that you had talked about in regards to full-day kindergarten,
It
correct?
is, yes.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Gifts, grants, and donations. A motion to accept with gratitude the following donation. Yorktown High School, a Selmer 1401 plastic clarinet and case from Mrs. Allison Hanson.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are up to board comments. Christine, would you like to start?
I'm good, thank you.
Anthony?
Negative.
Nope.
Tom? Mike?
Yeah, I got a couple things, actually. I'm going to put my Mark Drexel hat on for a minute. Just, in light of our double public comment session, the first comment session is supposed to be about agenda-related items, and it really has started to move way down the list of things that we do. And I think in fairness to the people that come out to speak, it really should be before we start the agenda-related items that they get to comment on them. So I'd like to propose that we try to move that to, somewhere like right after good news. It doesn't seem right the way we keep moving it down the line.
Okay.
So I just want to
I
kind of
agree.
throw that out there and see.
Valuable part of the team, Mike.
Thank you. And I have one other similar point. I guess, and this is maybe my Ed Safone hat. Give Ed a shout out because we haven't seen him in a while. But we post things in the agenda that show up in executive content, which means that prior to the meeting, for those of you that don't know, prior to the meeting, the board has access to that along with the administration. Some of those items then are made public before or at the meeting. And I guess my question is, if those items are going to be displayed at the meeting, shouldn't they be available to the public at some point ahead of the meeting so they know what we're looking at? For example, tonight we used the diagram, which was outstanding, about the data warehousing and the in-bloom piece, and then we presented it at the meeting, but it was never made, as far as I could tell, it was never made public beforehand. So it's just one of those things. It's kind of a checks and balances. There needs to be somebody who says at some point, this is what we're going to show, and it needs to be available.
Can I add one little piece to that? Because I agree with that, and I think that the graphic tonight possibly could have been released. But can we agree that if there's something that needs an explanation that may be a bit controversial, that might be a little misleading without being explained at the same time, can we allow that those things be released as we discuss them? And I think that we can reflect back over the years on some items that if we would have put it up 3 days ahead of time without Ralph narrating and explaining, it might have led to, the wrong impression. You know what I mean? Can we allow that if that's necessary?
I understand what you're saying. I guess, you got to look at what is the open meeting supposed to be about, and maybe if those things are revealed, people do come out and ask questions about them if they know about it ahead of time. It just seems like if we control all the information, we don't really give the public a fair chance to see it and come out and comment on it. And we don't have a huge participation rate as it is at our meetings, and I think anything we can do to encourage people to come out and ask questions and give us input is valuable. So.
How about for the next meeting, the next agenda, we run it by Margot and we ask her what should be released in public before the agenda and what.
Again, I don't know what the answer is. I just think that there's, if we're going to release things, there needs to be a cutoff as to when we're going to release it to the public so they have a chance to see it and decide whether they want to come to the meeting and comment on it.
Okay, no, we'll run it by Margot because I think that Margot has a really good handle on the open meetings law, and she'd probably be the better one to advise us, correct?
Just to reassure you, I hear what you're saying, I don't disagree, but just to reassure you, two things. One is we are going to hold a public meeting on this particular topic, and we've invited everybody through
Connect Ed.
Connect Ed message, and also we put the blurb on the website. So we feel confident that if people do want to come, they will have the opportunity. We did, interestingly enough, the graphic that we used, we did that today at the 11th hour. I wish I had that in advance, to tell you the truth. As I was looking at the resolution again, I was thinking people are going to be confused by that, because just as Mr. and Mrs. Rogers assumed that, opting out means no more Common Core, and I forgot what other things that they kind of brought up. And it really has nothing to do with the Common Core stays in place, APPR stays in place, pre-assessments stay in place. None of that changes. It's one singular item, and it's that item only. So I do hear what you're saying, and I respect that. I hear it. I wish I had it sooner. I don't know if I would have shared it, because I'm not sure if I would have caused more confusion. I was really trying to, in my own mind, when we sat and did that, I was trying to really think about how do I make clear what the concern is, because they have a lot of that information, as you pointed out. They have it. It's just a matter of how much more do we release, and who are we releasing it to? That's what the concern becomes. So I hear that, though, Mike. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Karen?
Tonight was another really great night. I love, love, love that we have the kids come. They are the cutest kids. Oh, it's so enjoyable. It's so enjoyable, even all the way up to the high school. You think at some point they're not cute anymore, but they really still are. So thank you for that, and I thought it was really great that Mrs. Emmerling, a new principal, she had so many staff members here supporting her and the students, and I think that needs to be recognized. I think that's a wonderful way to stand behind your principal, and I so appreciate their efforts. Just from a policy standpoint, there's two things that we're going to be bringing forward for the next meeting. One is going to be the wellness policy that I spoke with some of you. I popped you guys an email that we're going to be modifying that to a certain extent with regards to outside public usage and what we require of them. And also, Rebecca made me aware of today that we're going to be another mandate for a new policy for parents' access to APPR results. So we're going to be going over that. Ralph and his team are going to be going over it with Cabinet we'll bring it back. But it is a mandate. We have to put one in place. Margot's drafted one, and hopefully we'll have that ready. I don't know what the date needs to be that needs to be approved by, but either it will be ready for the next meeting, or we'll have an update what the status is at the next meeting. Thanks.
Okay, Christine? Anthony? Oh, I did them already? Yeah. Oh, isn't that, okay, I'm sorry. It's so late. I just wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank you for bringing the social workers here tonight. It's really important that we fully understand what all the different departments do and how valuable everybody is. It goes to the whole child. And we got to see it with the Brookside kids. It was important to see it with social workers, so we really appreciate that they came and gave us that whole presentation. Ralph, Florence, Tom, anything? Anything for public comment? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.